What is going on, y'all? And welcome to 8 Cubes with KMBest and Lambie series. Let's jump right into Loki. What are your first impressions of Loki, Lambie?
Alright, so when I saw the card for the first time before release, I thought, this card is quite good, right? Because you can get discounts on all the cards that you get from your opponent. So my initial impression was, alright, we play a bunch of early stats, we play Loki, we swap our hand, we get a bunch of early stats as well, and then we just play it out on the board, like stats into more stats after Loki, like refill kind of thing. So that was good, right? But then Loki released, and it wasn't just good, it was bonkers. It was so bonkers because, like, the fact that firstly Loki is a 3/5, why is this a 3/5? The fact that it's a 3/5, the idea we had was correct. Like all of us had the sort of same idea, which was like stats, refill, more stats. But it compounded so greatly. Like there was no deck in Marvel Snap that could keep up with that amount of generation and stats. And it also turned the collector from like a B tier card into a S tier card, which is like the collector
What's
on
higher
average.
than S?
Yeah, higher than S. It's like S+1, whatever you want to call it. But
Yes.
like at first I thought, all right, it's gonna be big, like 210. No, it's 220 sometimes. It's crazy. And the craziest thing about it is like it made a lot of good cards not good. Like, we always talk about Kitty Angela being amazing. Angela is too slow when you play a Loki deck. And like the generation you get from Loki, the buffs to the collector, the discounts you get on your opponent's cards, and in the mirror you Loki into Loki, and then that's crazy. So this card is bonkers right now, and there is currently, in my opinion, not a really great counter to it.
I would add on, because I think the Angela Kitty thing is really illustrative of how the deck works, right? The Angela Kitty is like a very powerful, fair, mid-range game plan that in past metas has been the best possible thing to be doing multiple times. And this deck is so turbo powered that it's like, we don't want to even do that. That's too fair. That's like, it's too fair for what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is cheat. And that is so fair. And I think, there is something to be said for the deck that has the cheaty high roll stapled to a solid mid-range game plan, right? Like, I think there's something to be said for that. You'll probably lose some mirrors to the people that are fully in on the high roll, but there's something to be said for that long term. Loki generally, I think, is extremely powerful. I don't know if he's the best card in Marvel Snap. I don't know if he's Zabu Surfer tier. What I do know is the mirrors with this deck are so bad that I don't think I ever want to play another one, and it's been like 2 days. Because the dynamics in the mirrors with this card are, you have to, first of all, both of you draw the cards, right? So you need Quinjet, you need Collector, you need Loki, and something to put more cards in your hand, right? And then it becomes who got the better Loki, who generated their opponent's Loki and Collector. Because if that happens, you just keep looping it forever. And so it adds this kind of ridiculous dynamic to mirrors where it's about not just the cards you draw, but the cards you randomly generate. And if doesn't matter how you play, if they randomly generate better stuff than you, if they get Collector Loki twice, you're just probably dead. And I will say, I think of all the things about the card that people may object to, that is the one I object to the most. It's strong, it's bonkers, it's awesome, it's fun. The mirrors are very bad. And I think that if they become a large part of ladder, which for me they already have been, it's just not an experience I want to be part of for much longer.
Alright, so next on our plate is about how to beat Loki. We did mention earlier on that it's probably really difficult to beat this card, but I feel like there are certain things you can do and we've tried that have been decently successful. Like the funny one is playing bad stuff in your own deck. Because when you play bad stuff in your own deck, and then when they Loki you, they get like unplayable cards. Like maybe a destroy deck. Well, you don't actually have to play a bad destroy deck, but like destroy decks generally have a lot of unplayable cards for other archetypes. So playing a destroy deck could be decent into Loki. Playing I think KM mentioned before Sauron, giving them stuff like unplayable Ebony Moss is also something that you can consider. So in a sense, it's not really playing a bad deck. It's playing a deck that's bad for your opponent. That's something that I feel like could be a thing. And another thing I want to touch on also, just a quick note, is that Loki on ladder and in Conquest is very different. Ladder, it's because it's like a best of one. So if your opponent high rolls you one time, Collector, you don't have Collector, GG, that kind of thing. But in battle mode, I feel like a lot of the time, playing smart, like how you should play battle mode, like retreating when you don't have the good hand, when you have the good hand snap, hope they get greedy and stay versus your collector, stuff like that. Gets you more wins. And I mean, it's not exactly a counter to Loki per se, but I feel like playing good conquest helps in the mirrors in Loki. So just being the better player.
Yeah. I mean, larger sample size, the better player will end up winning more, for sure, yeah. So I tried I've got like 6 or 7 things on the docket for beating Loki. And I want to touch on what you said, which was, you play cards that are bad for your opponent. The idea is basically you want to play something just a little bit finicky, right? You want to play like a Mr. Negative, a Hella Tribunal, a Shuri Sauron, a Shuri Nimrod, something where it's just like, you need a really specific combination of cards, and you get them, but they might not get that combination of cards to actually pull it off, right? And I think there are ways forward here, but I don't necessarily like that is the answer, right? So like another example would be like Cerebro 3. The way it forces you to warp yourself is that you can't play any counters to what you're doing.
Ooh,
so if you're a Cerebro deck relying on Shadow King and Valkyrie, you can't play your own loot cage because they get your loot cage, invalidate your Shadow King, invalidate your Valkyrie, right? You're a deck that makes big stats. You can't play a Shang-Chi. They get your Shang-Chi, you die, right? And so I think that's it's a very awkward situation where you have to build your deck a bit more to be a bit more fragile, basically. You're building to be fragile because that way when they take your deck, they don't know what to do with all the pieces. And that sort of lends itself to just losing to other decks that are not building to be fragile. It's a very interesting deck building dynamic. Like, I will say I've never experienced this deck building dynamic, and the sicko in me is like kind of compelled by it, but I don't know if it's one that you would necessarily want to be the major deck building dynamic in your game, which is what happens if they steal my cards? How good is my deck against itself? I'm not sure that's what they would be going for, but that is the general thought process that you have to have when building against this.
I think a lesser successful option that I've had, like it's decently successful, but I think it's more backed on the fact of player diff, which is I've been playing Silk Wave, like the Silk deck with Wave. So I don't think Wave actually beats Loki. It doesn't, but it does do a bit of restriction in the sense that you play a lot of early stats with the Silk deck, right? Like a lot of 2/5s, 3/5s, Craven, and stuff like that. So when they eventually Loki you already have the stats on board from your early game. Then you wave them. So maybe it kind of works because your stats are already there. So that's potentially decent. But like, of course, it doesn't really beat the ultimate Loki heroes of Collector on 2 and then they Loki on 3. Because if they Loki on 3, they get your Silk, which is a 1/5. They get your Spider-Man, which is a 2/5. They get your Craven, which is a 1/2. So like, I think the strategy that I was looking at with Silk Wave is that they don't do Quinjet Collector Loki. If they don't do that, I think the Silk Wave has a chance. But it's still like a bit of a struggle sometimes.
I actually came up with the same idea. So, like, no, I totally get where you're coming from. I do think one thing you might have missed, though, is that you get to run Shang-Chi in that deck because nothing you do goes big enough, right? And that'll only hit them. So, like, the idea with the Silk stuff is, they need to Loki you on 4, and they need to know enough to know they need to Loki you on 4, right? So there is that, right? But if they do Loki you on 4, like, if they go, like, anything basically into like Loki for 7 and they have a Quinjet, you're just absolutely dead. Like you are just absolutely demolished beyond all reasonable recognition. So one of the things I was actually kicking about was like, what if you do it like that, but you have like Wave Odin? What if you play like the Silk deck, but you have like Wave Odin something? Does that make any sense? Like that's something I've been kicking around basically everything. But I got about as far as you did with that, and it's like, okay, well, we lose to Loki on 4. Like, Snowguard Loki on 4, we just absolutely just completely eat it. They could play nothing else and we would die.
Yeah.
But I think that one's interesting.
Just one final point to add to what you said. I think it makes sense. Wave Odin Doom, right? Wave Odin Doom.
Yeah.
At the end of the point is that, like, with this strategy, you want to have more points in them on them in the early game than them. So it's possible with the Silk stuff. So maybe some Silk deck with Wave Odin Doom could be a possibility.
Yeah, but like it's also just really hard to actually have more points when they get the collector stuff. Like they just do it.
Yeah.
Next up, we've talked a lot about Loki. There is an OTA next Thursday. Do you think they're gonna do anything about this card?
I mean, there's 2 things that I think could happen. One of it is the one that actually puts the nail in the coffin, which is you turn Loki's effect into without the reduction of 1 cost. That one I think would really be enough because I don't think they can touch Quinjet. Like Quinjet's already been hit once. So
Yeah.
I think if they make Loki don't have the -1 in the cards that it gets, then I think it's fine. But what's more likely to happen, I feel, is they reduce the power of Loki to like a 3/3 or something, which does solve a
It's
little bit.
fine.
It
Yeah.
solves a little bit of the problem, but not the main problem. So I think the latter option is what is more likely to happen because they don't want to completely kill the card. I think if you turn it into like 3/5 with no discounts on the cards you get, it's gonna be like a lot worse. So maybe turn it into a 3/3. And I'm trying to think what collector to 2/1, not very significant. 2/0 might be too much, stuff like that.
One of the things I've been thinking about is like, how can they change the context around Loki? Like, what could they buff that would be good against this?
True.
Like, what cards could they introduce that would be good against this? What are the things they could do? And frankly, I'm kind of a little bit at a loss. Like, my big pitch would be revert the Soulstone nerf, because I'm pretty sure Thanos can build a deck where the cards that they get are not very good outside of the context of having a bunch of stones, right? Like you play like Khazar Zoo with Thanos, right? Well, they don't have any ones for that Khazar to buff, and you have a bunch, right? You have like your tech cards, you have your Valkyrie or whatever. Those are all terrible for them, but they're really good for you. Like, that's the kind of deck that I feel like you could build if Soulstone wasn't just like punched into the ground recently. That's like one thing, just like something I don't revert the Shuri nerf.
Oh, I think that's a very dangerous nerf to revert. Like reverting the Shuri nerf opens up a lot of dangerous possibilities. But we might see Galactus come back with the Shuri nerf, honestly. Which is not bad.
That's actually true. No,
I
that
like
is bad.
Galactus. I do like Galactus, but not now.
No, we don't need to do that. We don't need to solve this problem by destroying the planet, okay? We don't need to do that.
True. I think I just want to add one more point, which is I think we can considerably revert the Soulstone nerf regardless of like what is happening. Because like I don't think Soulstone even deserved the nerf. Like, okay, I'm a Thanos
I'll tell
fan,
you, no,
like,
it did. It did deserve a nerf. I'll tell you why.
Why?
In our next topic. Next up is Alioth, which I personally, this is my conspiracy theory, but I believe this card is the reason that Soulstone was nerfed. So consider the following. If you play Thanos, you turn 4 a Professor X, you're winning that lane. Okay. You turn 5 a Devil Dinosaur, you're winning that lane. You have priority, Alioth the Dino lane, no counterplay, game over. They had to do something. Like, they had to do something. That's like the worst. Isn't that just the worst thing you've ever heard of? Like,
it's quite out there. I'm not gonna lie, but like
it's really bad. They had to do something about Thanos preemptively before this came out. I feel like I don't know, that's man. When they saw coming.
I mean, I don't know if that's an actual reason, but okay. But the thing is, personally, I think Alioth is one of my favorite cards coming out like this month. Just not as a Loki counter. It's nothing to do with Loki. It's more like Alioth has pre-nerf Aero vibes, you know how it's like if you're winning on 2 lanes and then you just play Aero in the lane that you intend to lose anyway, then you pull everything there and you just win. It's like simple Marvel Snap. So like Alioth is the same thing, right? You win 2 lanes with tempo, like the Silk deck, for example. Like I was talking a lot about running Alioth in the Silk deck. Like you just go stuff, wave, and then whichever lane needs to be not lost, you play Alioth there and everything goes boom, right? Because they don't even flip. Yep. So I think the fact that Alioth kills cards that don't flip is super important because that means that having priority is like the way you should play this, right? I don't even think this card is like best in ramp. People think ramp because you can ramp out Alioth, but like ramp doesn't have that much early stats. But tempo decks do.
I will tell you, I think ramp is another shell for just going Electro, Profex, Dino, Alioth.
True.
Like Nebula, Jeff, Electro, Profex, Dino, Alioth, get out of here. Like that does seem really strong to me. Like just it doesn't even have to be Dino, just a big guy, a guy big enough to take priority, right? Like that's where I would play this in ramp. I wouldn't be doing like Electro into. Okay, hold on. No, that doesn't work. It's like, what if we Electro into Shuri, Alioth, Zola? No, that's terrible. But like Alioth, Zola is not really where my head is at, basically.
Yeah, I mean Alioth just feels good because it's really just pre-nerf Aero vibes to me. Like you can play it in so many things. Like I feel like people don't realize that it's really splashable as heck. Like it can be in not any deck, in many decks, just decks that have stats, ramp to a certain extent. You can play it in Galactus, obviously, as a shutout. Actually, it's disgusting in Galactus if it works, but
It's
like
disgusting in Galactus because you're always going to have priority.
yeah,
That was what I wanted to
exactly.
do. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to put the Professor X Dino stuff in my Thanos deck and then also put Galactus in there. And then just be like,
True.
get out of here. I'm scamming you somewhere this game. Someone is going to get scammed this game, and it's you.
You know, it's the funny thing, like even for like lower collection level players that happen to have some tokens, right? Or like have caches, right? You can go play it in ongoing destroyer. You just go do the warpath, do the armor warpath thing. Heck, this one you don't need the armor because
Yo, yeah,
yeah,
you go like Warpath Professor X, dude. You
yeah,
get him.
you go warpath prof, then you just play Alliance with initiative and you win the lane. It's actually quite a CL friendly card as long as you have like spotlight caches, right?
Next up is a card I wish they would release sooner. Mobius M. Mobius. My pitch for how they could fix this Loki mess is just be like, oh no, the timelines got mixed up. Next week's spotlight caches are actually Mobius, not Eliath. He'll be in the store. That would solve, I feel like, a lot of problems. Not just for people who bought Mobius, but because, you know, I assume that with Mobius, there will be decks that beat this Loki crap. So if that happens, at least, you know, the Loki players will have to think twice before just being like, it's time to queue Loki. It's time to play Loki. So what do you think about Mobius? Do you think this card was designed as a solution to Loki, or do you think that, or if so, do you think that like shows any weakness in how Marvel Snap card releases happen?
I don't think it's designed specifically to like counter Loki. I feel like this whole month and like leading up to future releases, I think this whole month is the beginning of the Marvel Snap power creep. Because like, you know, in card games, after a while, things just need to get stronger and get stronger as a whole. So I feel like they're gonna start releasing more cards with like game-breaking effects, so like everything becomes a bit more busted. Mobius, personally, I feel will be like a meta staple. Like I never thought Loki was a meta staple, but currently it is. But like Mobius, I feel like will be a meta staple because the thing is, it single-handedly counters so many things. And even if you're not playing a Mobius dedicated like wave deck or whatever, you also want to play your own Mobius, because if you don't, you lose to people playing the Mobius wave thing, right? For example. So
Right.
like
Defensive Mobius is strong as
yeah,
hell.
exactly. And it's a 2/3. It's a 2/3, so it's so easy to fit into everything, right? So Mobius is one of those cards that is very disgusting because, like, for example, like Mobius Wave, you just go Mobius, then you play Wave, and then you can play like a 6 cost plus like a Silk on turn 6. It's crazy. And of course, you can totally disguise that fact because you can even go Wave Mobius on 5, which is 2+3. It's crazy. Wave Mobius on 5, they don't see it coming, then they stay in for your snap and then they just die.
Yeah, I do think that it seems like a very powerful card, but frankly, I mean, I feel like it's just going to be one of those cards where it's like, all right, this card is everywhere, which makes it less useful, right? It's like
Yeah.
Luke Cage the
True.
first day of the first week of High Evo. It's like, oh well, everyone's playing Mobius, so we can't actually do anything here. Like we can't actually abuse it. We're building for Mobius Wave, right? And we're just losing to people who are playing fair Mobius because the Mobius Wave stuff isn't even working, right? And I think that's a pretty compelling card to me. Like obviously I think it's strong, but I think it'll be a little bit more fair than Loki if fair by force, right? It'll be fair because the counter to Mobius is Mobius. It's right there.
Yeah.
Right? It's right there. And it's not like you need a Mobius on turn 3 or whatever. You have until turn 5 to get your Mobius, right? Like you're good. You're not going to get scammed before then. You're probably fine, right? I do worry about something along the lines of, say, Mobius Wave Galactus, right?
Right.
Where it's just like, I get to play a Galactus here. You don't get to play anything above curve at all. I think that's a little worrying for me. That does feel pretty toxic, but I would put that more on Galactus than I would on Mobius.
Yeah. I think one last thing to add is that I feel like because of the existence of Mobius at the end of the month, it's just the way the meta will shift naturally, right? So like you mentioned, people get Mobius firstly, new card, it's great with Wave. So other people play Mobius to counter the Mobius Wave, even if they don't play Wave. And then because of the amount of Mobiuses in the game, no one's going to play Zabu, no one's going to play Sarah, whether they like it or not. They just can't, right? So the meta will shift in a Mobius direction, and then the top decks will probably just include Mobius as a splash and whatever other cards they want to play, just because like they have to.
Yeah, It'll be like fair meta plus Mobius.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that after the last few days.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Today has also brought the introduction of ranked ladder. I am currently ranked above 69th in the world, or below, I suppose, however you'd phrase it. I have not gone as far down as 69 yet, but I will get that screenshot when I can. Thank you, of course, to everyone supporting me in my journey to 69. Lambie, what are your thoughts on ranked ladder?
Right, so I entered at like 70 something, so it's not too bad as well. But like I think I haven't really played much ladder before in the months since Conquest has released. So I think it does affect
Same.
a little bit because of like if you've been grinding a lot of ladder, your MMR is like really high, right? So you enter at a slightly higher rank and stuff like that. But I think this rank ladder thing is good to a certain extent because like there are some people that just love ladder, right? You cannot deny that not everybody loves Conquest as much as I do, but like not anybody everybody loves Conquest. So having a sort of goal to like see your number increase as you play ladder, it's kind of good. Like it gives you like some sort of incentive, not actual incentive like rewards per se, but like it's just like a thing you can do. So there's definitely a market for that, and I think releasing it now is better than never, you know. But I think the downside of ladder to me is that it's firstly I feel like because of the starting points of players at different levels, like some players start like with like a few hundred cubes less than another player, right? That kind of thing. So the ability to catch up is like almost impossible unless you literally live and breathe Marvel Snap. And the second thing is on a lesser note, I do think that most people still think that Conquest is the better mode.
I would agree that Conquest is the better mode, but I did want to highlight some of the problems with ladder because it doesn't feel like there's a very strong K value, which is to say, in these systems, as I understand them, I could be wrong. The K value is the thing that like puts the emphasis on your most recent games, right? It feels like so much of where you are here is baked into past performances in past seasons, and it doesn't really feel like there's a good mechanism other than just winning 300 cubes to actually get out of that, right? Like, and cube gains and losses feel pretty static too, right? Like I am in the like when I win I get +3, when I lose I get -4 bracket. That's normal, right? But it happens basically regardless of who I face. Like it happens like if I face rank 7, okay, I mean I lose 4. If I face rank 1000, I lose 4. Like it doesn't seem
Yeah,
it doesn't
sense.
seem exactly right there. Like it doesn't seem like they've fully figured out the numbers on that one in such a way as to allow you to climb realistically. I will say, I see a lot of people complaining like, "Oh, I won and then my rank went down." Yeah, but your snap value went up. It just means other people are hitting infinite, my dog.
Yeah. It's normal that you like, especially at the lower ranks, if you won and your rank goes down, maybe because at the same time, like in other card games, it's the same. Like, maybe at the same time you won while like 10 other people won at the same time. It just could happen as well. And then like it happens. I think I agree with you 100% that like to make this ladder thing like more incentivized, they need to figure out a system whereby if you play against a better player, by better I mean just like higher rank player, you should theoretically be getting more cube gains because they are supposedly higher MMR, right? Like in other games, if you beat someone with a higher MMR, your rank sort of climbs a little bit faster. So I think it makes sense.
There's such a little differential, right? If I
It's the
beat,
same.
rank, it's not exactly the same. It's
Yeah,
a
it's a little
little bit different, but like it's not different enough to make it feel
Yes.
realistic to climb.
All right. So with that, we are looking now at other decks that could contend for a potential top spot in this Loki meta. Personally, I feel there are not many, but like the like the Silk Wave deck that I mentioned prior is possible because it can play a diff, but it can't play a diff the Loki nuts, to be honest. Another thing that I feel is potentially possible to contend for this spot is like some sort of like go super tall deck, like a Shuri deck. But once again, I haven't actually figured out a way to consistently beat Loki in this meta. I don't know, KM, what do you think?
So I brewed like 8 decks for a YouTube video, all with the aim of beating Shuri Sauron, right? And I'm happy with some and I'm not super happy with others because like they're all like, this is some fragile stuff, right? Because
you mean
don't want
beating
Loki
Loki
to take your stuff. Yeah, to beat Loki, sorry. And I just sort of like I've been playing them and they all seem fine. The Shuri one is probably the most promising. There's like some okay discard ones, but they all have this sort of fundamental issue of if Loki just does the broken thing to you, you're still probably going to lose. Like even the Shuri stuff, like if they get something like, you know, a 4 energy Red Skull, a 3 energy Typhoid Mary, like, yeah, those cards aren't good for them, but they're still fine, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's still a God forbid they get like your Sauron or your Shuri, you just end up going smaller than them. Like, it's not the worst spot anyone's ever been in, and you're benefiting a lot from them having to cut Shang-Chi for mirrors. I like that list a fair bit. I will say there are two lists I want to just sort of dismiss right out of hand. And the first is Sandman.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about Sandman like, oh, just prevent them from playing all their cards. It's like, dog, they're already ahead on board, and they just got your Doctor Doom, your leader, and your Odin. Like it's the lockdown decks are predicated on you have to be ahead the moment you lock down or be close enough that your big cards can swing the game in your favor. But that doesn't work against Loki because they get your big cards.
Yes.
And also, they're probably ahead already. It's a very weird situation playing against Loki. But those are like some common suggestions I see, like, oh, play High Evo, they get bad cards. Oh, play Sandman, they get and play Sandman. And it's like, no. I don't honestly believe either of those long term are viable strategies against the Loki deck.
Right.
As far continue.
Yeah, right. So, one more thing about the high evo deck is even in the past, how it used to win was that it would stay relatively close with like the slight reductions of the Cyclops on your opponent's cards, and the finisher was Doom, right? Because you got 5 stats on all lanes. But the thing is, with versus the Loki deck, you are almost always never close enough to close out with a Doom or like one big Hulk in one lane. Like it's too much too fast, and like. The thing about the high evo deck is it plays very fair energy cost stuff, right? Like your 3 cost is 3, is Cyclops on 3, and then maybe Storm, and like it's all like not super high statted and fair costed cards, which cannot keep up with Loki. And to further reiterate the Sandman point, like we talked about Silk Wave earlier, being decent into this Loki stuff. Sandman is actually worse because Sandman has no early stats. Like Silk Wave has early stats and it is close, but Sandman has no early stats, so realistically, how can it be close, right?
Yeah, it's like you give up multiple turns to try to get your Sandman on 4, and then when you do, your payoff is that they just do what you did, but better. Yes. It sucks.
All right, so the last topic for us today, and also the number one question on the last stream of mine is, why is Snowguard good now? If you guys didn't know, Snowguard has been buffed, Omega buffed, by the way, to become a 1/2 that gets you 2 of the Auroras, the Bear and the Hawk, each having 2 energy 3 power with their respective effects. So before we even talk about their effects, I just want to say that Snowguard is a 1/2 that gets you 2/2/3s. That is like Omega Sentinel right there.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. So it's Omega Sentinel. And okay, so I've put a lot of stock in these kind of toolbox cards. Toolbox cards meaning cards that have like variable ways of playing them out, which is why I think that Legion is one of the best cards in the game because it's very varied in how you can play them. Snowguard lets you do it to a certain extent similarly, but cheaper as well, because like the Bear lets you re-trigger like a Wakandan embassy, right? Buff your hand, buff their hand, fine, but like you choose when to do it. And the Hawk, I think, is the better card, which is you can shut down a location for 2 turns, sort of, and at the same time it lets you do things like crazy things like play into unplayable locations when you shut it off, and then it turns on again, and then your opponent cannot play into unplayable locations, for example. So I feel like Snowguard is good not because it is just a 1/2 that gives you 2/2/3s. But Snowguard is also good because it is like a super player div card. Like you have so much control over what you want to do with these Auroras, and it's really up to the player to skill express themselves.
I think you missed one thing about why Snowguard is good, and that's that it puts them in your hand for free, and that buffs the collector and gives you more stuff to Loki.
Okay, that one I'll let. Yeah, fine.
Yeah. You forgot the part where it's just like, oh yeah, turn 4, my hand is 7 cards. Oh yeah, there's a Loki. Like, you have like 5 cards in hand, you go Loki, Snowguard, it's just like, oh, okay. That's amazing. It's or Snowguard Loki, I should say. But like, yeah, Also, yeah, with Quinjet, those things cost 1.
Yep.
Like that's pretty ridiculous. Like it's build your own Legion with more flexibility. Like it's not as immediate as Legion. You aren't going to be able to scam people the same way with this card as you will with the others. Like it's a little rarer because you have to play the Snow Guard and then they know what the possibilities are, right? But it's still extremely, extremely powerful. And of course, the Collector Loki stuff is a ridiculously strong home for it.
Yeah, I want to add, I think, like maybe just one final point, which is it's very similar and also very different to Legion in a good sense, which is Legion, even if they Conquest first, even if they know Legion is in your deck, they don't know it's in your hand. So that's the scary part. But for the Snow Guard Auroras, for example, they know it's in your hand, but because those Auroras are so cheap, they don't know when you're gonna play it as well, right? So like the obvious one is, let's say, okay, I have a Hawk and they have Limbo. I can turn off the Limbo. But do I want to turn off the Limbo? I don't have to. And it's so cheap. I can fit it in if I want to. If I don't want to, I don't fit it in. Like stuff like that. Or like I can turn off Sanctum Sanctorum, but do I need to? The things they don't know, and because it's so cheap, I can really fit it in with the rest of my curve whenever I want to, which makes Snow Guard very beautiful. So one thing I just want to throw back to you, KM, is do you think, and this is a very popular question on my stream, do you think it is finally worth 6K? Well, it's 3K now, but do you think it's worth
so
it?
like worth 3K, yes. But I feel like people sort of overestimate how easy it is to actually be worth 6K.
True.
Like the rate of token acquisition for a player who is not spending money on this game is very, very low.
Yeah.
If you want to get something that's worth 6K, it's probably going to have to be one of the absolute best cards in the game that also unlocks a tier 1 deck for you, right? Like it's got to be ridiculous. So I feel like the threshold for is this worth 6K is higher for a normal person than it is for us. For us, I mean, like how many tokens do you have right now?
Like 20K or something.
Yeah, so yeah, for you it's worth 6K. Who cares, right? Like, but like for someone who only has 6,000 tokens, there are probably other things they might want to pick up.
That's true. I mean, now it's 3K. So do you think it's worth 3K? Okay, I think I'm a bit wrong.
Yes.
6K is a bit too expensive, right? But 3K, I think so, yeah.
3K, yeah. I mean, like it's a little bit worse than Legion still, probably,
yeah, it is.
But not actually. I mean, like not with Loki around, it's probably higher priority than Legion, honestly. But like, I've actually been thinking about this little tangent. Do we just like play all the bad card generators to make our opponent's Lokis worse? Like, are we just supposed to play like Agent 13s and Sentinels and then like Cable Mirage and like get rid of Coulson, get rid of Snow Guard because they're too good if our opponent rolls them off the Loki?
Oh, so basically we play the cards that steal their good cards and play the bad generators. So the only thing we care about the generation is just collector buffs, right?
Yes. And so when they do it, they just get a hand of like absolute crap.
I mean, okay, but the question is then, can this like weird deck beat not mirrors?
Yeah, there is that issue, right? Like,
yeah,
we might be getting a little too inbred, but it is something I've kicked around. Like, okay, is that doing anything? Okay, what if we did that, but also played Devil Dinosaur?
Oh, that makes sense. But like, yeah, that makes sense. So you have like a few hard. Maybe if we do it this way, we kind of have to play Angela again because like we need more like things in the early game. I feel.
But like, what if you just did that? And then just like oh, it's like here's this is just our you when you Loki us, you mostly get crap unless you high roll the dino, right?
That's true.
And the rest of the time we are getting hopefully better stuff off the Loki, and we still have like a dino plan to beat other decks.
That makes sense. Actually, should be something that can be tested out.
So like it's one of the things I was talking about because it's like Snow Guard obviously great in that, but low key it might be like too good when your opponent gets Snow Guard.
I mean, giving them Snow Guard late is not that bad as well, right? I mean, like other than Collector, because giving them Snow Guard late means they don't really get value from the Auroras until you actually play the Snow Guard. So like, other than Collector,
good if they get your Loki.
Yeah, okay, that's
it's too good there. It's just like this is the other thing. Like if we cut Snow Guard and Coulson, we don't have any +2s. But if they high roll us, they don't have any +2s. Like that was the thing I was thinking about.
True. Yeah, something to definitely consider, yeah. All right. Yeah.
We have completed all 8 cubes in a new record low time. We took as long as it was a record low, the wrong way. Record high. Sorry.
Oh,
sorry. Longest one we've ever done. longest one we've ever done. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for sticking around. I am KMBest. That is Lambie Series. And I will see you in the next one. Lambie, take us out.
I will see you guys real soon. And once again, to end it off, I have a trophy. If you guys don't know what this means, check out my other episode on this video, all right? Check out my other episode. And yes, see you guys real soon. Don't go away for the future episodes.
I'm higher ranked than a guy with a trophy, Mom.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
I did it. I did it, Mom.